Hola, amigos. It's me, your Spanish teacher. Just kidding. It's actually Bobbie Gaucher, and I'm sitting here with John Dutton today. And you'll never guess what we're about to do.
A podcast?
Correct. And today's podcast will be a word suggested by a listener named Luke Hibbert.
And what word would that be?
Boss.
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 Bobbie, have you had any thoughts about this already?
Yeah, I have a bunch of thoughts. So I would like to hear yours first.
I haven't.
What's
just
your first?
Exceptionally briefly in the 2 minutes leading up to this recording, because that's how professional we are on Fauxropter.
I just said that I had tons of thoughts.
Well, I
and
am.
that I've been thinking about it for weeks.
Okay. One thing I was thinking is the word boss is actually an adjective in Liverpool, in Scouse, meaning really cool. Like, hey, that's a boss car, mate.
The only way I thought Liverpool used the word boss was in reference to Jurgen Klopp.
Jurgen Klopp, the boss.
Yeah, of course.
Of the football team.
But on this side of the ocean,
yeah,
there's only one boss, and we all know who that is.
Is it Beyonce?
Okay, it's Bruce Springsteen. Come on. Everybody knows the boss.
I thought you were just going back to your reverting to Beyonce.
She's the queen.
Oh, God. shows what I know. Yes, I love Bruce.
Everybody does. He's the boss.
He is the boss. It's true. Well, I knew that. I've been buying Springsteen albums since I was 14. So
me too.
Okay, probably not what Luke was wondering about when he suggested the word, though.
I feel like he didn't know either. But I think it's interesting because boss can mean a lot of things. Not in that we all have a boss, unless you're your own boss.
Yeah, not everybody has a boss. You could be
so.
retired. You could be a little kid.
I'm just
You
poor.
could be your own boss. Can I just say, though, I had two thoughts, though. One was about the Scouse thing. The other one was this phrase, girl boss.
Ugh, okay.
So I'm sure that I have zero opinion about it, but I can see that you do have an opinion. But that to me is where the word has been a frequent use of the word boss outside of its typical context within the last, 3-4 years or something.
So when I thought about boss, right away, the boss bitch, girl boss, and the last one is there is a song from about 15 years ago from SNL called Like a Boss. It's done by Lonely Island.
Oh, yeah. I'd forgotten about... Oh, my gosh. I'd totally forgotten about that. That was a common catchphrase that people would say.
That's immediately...
That's where it kind of came back into common usage.
Yeah, I would say that kind of was the turn for it to become slang again.
Yeah. And I remember somebody explaining to me back then that there was a sort of sense to it that like a boss was really quite macho.
Yeah, well, the whole song is
really
tearing down what it means to be a boss, and kind of, it's 15 years ago, but it's the same kind of boss type now, that someone's really strong and powerful and they don't need to follow the rules and you're a boss.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was one of my favorite songs when I was in the end of high school.
Mm.
I knew every word to it. It was hilarious. But in no way did it make me want to be a boss.
Mm-hmm. No, because it was being ironic.
Yeah, it seemed like a terrible thing.
It was making fun of people who act like that, usually men.
Yeah.
Right.
It made them look terrible. So the reclaiming of the word boss and then associating it with girl boss or boss bitch.
Mm-hmm. Is there a distinction between those two things?
It doesn't matter. They're both garbage. They're absolute garbage.
No, but I mean, are they different things or not? I don't know. They can be garbage, but are they different kinds of garbage?
I would say yes, but I really don't want to get into what the difference between being a girl boss and a boss bitch.
Okay, fair.
Because at the end of the day, both of those sayings mean that as a woman, you can't just be a boss. You have to add your gender in some way to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is one of the most wild things on the planet to me that this is plastered on mugs and on notebooks and on pens to signify that to be a girl boss, you have to go out there and get this stuff and show people. No, just do your job and be a boss. Nobody's going to care. If you are stern and strict and have policies, it doesn't make you a boss bitch.
I can see that this is a touchy subject.
I just think it's kind of ridiculous that people add female kind of like gendered word or add gendered words to things that don't need to be gendered.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That happens, but that happens all the time, right?
But
because,
this is an instance of power that
right, because the default is male.
Yeah.
Right.
That you couldn't just be a boss. Like, you couldn't be like a boss because this is something that's so far away from what you are that you can be a girl boss. You can be cute and you can make it fun and you can have an Etsy shop. No, it's gross.
I remember, I mean, this is the same principle just flipped around because it explains it too, that same principle, which is when I was very little, almost all nurses were women, right? So you would have to say a male nurse. I mean, you wouldn't have to, but just, people did. People just would say a male nurse. And it's only now that it's become commonplace to have men who are nurses that you don't say it anymore. You just say nurse again. Yeah. Right? But it's the same type of thing. There was like, the baseline was a sexist situation, right? And then for ages after that, you have to keep mentioning gender because of the baseline. Yeah.
I think a really interesting example, I know it's off topic, but that the word actress is kind of being removed now because there was actors and actresses. And now if you listen to interviews or look up movies, it's just actor and actors.
Yeah.
Because there was no reason to gender it.
Yeah, I catch myself saying actress, and the reason that I catch myself is because I've become aware that people are trying not to say it.
Yeah, I think there's so many jobs that we've gendered that there's just no need to.
Yeah.
A mailman's a mailman, even if it's a woman. I understand the concept.
Yeah, well, they say male carrier. In the US, they say male carrier, right?
They do?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But this gets back to that both women and men can be boss.
Right.
Also, even though I argued that I think it's dumb, I do like the concept of using boss as an adjective.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Well, I think it's boss.
It's boss.
I think it's such a good signifier for power that everybody immediately responds to. You understand exactly what that word means.
And this is maybe slightly, probably is off topic, but I just need to check. There's a word that I was taught by my teenage children that I need to understand whether it is the same root or not, which is bussing. No. It's not bossing. It's nothing to do with that.
Nothing to do with that.
Okay, cool. Carry on.
But now that you brought that up, because I'm thinking of myself as a teenager, and I was referred to as bossy. And I've always been referred to as bossy. Is there something wrong with being bossy?
And the other thing is, men never get called bossy.
No.
Right.
It's a synonym for bitchy.
Yeah. It's a euphemism almost for bitchy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think people have been aware of that for quite some time now, that bossy it's not the best thing to say because you just don't say it for men. But
also, okay, I never took it as insulting.
Yeah, because what people meant by it might not have been insulting.
It was. They absolutely meant it in an assaulting way.
Oh.
That I kind of take over a situation and I tell people what to do. And I assume I know best. Like a boss.
Yeah, I can see why this was your favorite song.
Yeah, of course. I was like, yes, of course someone should be doing that. But I find myself like, this might not be a situation that you've been in. There's a couple situations where I'm surrounded by people and everybody's looking for a solution and I have it. I know what the solution is. I played it out in my head. I kind of have an example, but I'm better at it now. But especially when I was younger, I wouldn't say it right away because part of learning in my mind is that you try out things that don't work. You see that they don't work. And then I present my solution. I'm like, we could do it this way. But I think that comes from not wanting to be bossy, to kind of like shutting down that part of myself. Making sure that everybody else had their chance to be bossy, and then I could be like, okay, I know.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a tone to it, right? Like,
no, I'm bossy when I do it.
No, but like, okay, but I'm not just talking about you. I'm saying like letting everybody have their say is fine, and it doesn't mean if you then say your thing at the end that you're necessarily bossy. You're just saying your thing. But if you act bossy, you know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Tone. if it seems like you're imposing it on people, unless you're literally the boss. Because if you're literally the boss in a workplace environment, well, of course, that's literally your job to tell people what to do.
So, interestingly, I am the boss in my workplace, and I have been for a little bit, but I call everybody else boss. That's one of the things that when we saw the word, I remember thinking that right away. That when I go to work, someone told me this week, they're like, oh, you're the boss. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Thanks, boss. I constantly say, thanks, boss. And I've said this for 2 or 3 jobs. And I think it's in the same regard as when people use the word chef. And chefs are like, oh, don't call me chef. I hate the word chef. Because it signifies a level of respect when somebody refers to you as the boss. And I think everybody should have the same baseline respect. So it's why I've always used, yeah, no problem, boss. And I've had previous bosses who were above me that when they hear me say that, they say, oh, don't say that. And I was like, well, anybody could be the boss.
That's interesting. Yeah. I hadn't ever thought about that.
Yeah. I only thought about it recently because there's a show about a chef. And they talk about kind of the rules regarding the word chef and why you should be using it. And it made me think of the way I used boss. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I do it in the same fashion.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're kind of subverting it.
Yeah. Because it was used like a boss, again, is such a good example. It was used for so many years in a really patronizing and toxic way that I think everybody should be allowed to use it in the way they want and feel empowered.
Yeah, because you can have power in an organization. You can be in charge, like it's your role, right, to make decisions.
Well, someone has to be the boss.
Somebody has to make decisions. Isn't the same thing as somebody has to be the boss, right? Because then when you tell somebody, depends on the person, but there are many people, if you tell them you're the boss, then they're going to misuse that term. Oh,
well, I can think of multiple times that someone has been like, well, I'm the boss. Like, I think it's archaic to be like, what I say is go.
Yeah, but then it comes down to tone, though, as well, because the person could actually know what's best. But like, I've definitely made that mistake when I was a lot younger and I was in charge of people, of just not knowing how to communicate properly in terms of just delivering decisions and stuff.
Yeah, I think people who say I'm the boss don't have very many soft skills.
No, for sure. And if it comes down to that, if it's that, then you've sort of you've lost, right? You've lost respect. If you have to say that, like unless you're literally like in the army or something, right, where there's a very, very rigid hierarchy and you have no choice but to obey, and you knew that when you signed up, then fine. But like organizations, normal working environments or academic environments or something shouldn't have that. Right.
Well, I think we've done it for today.
I feel like, do you think Luke is going to be happy with this?
We'll see. And if not, please be sure to write in at fauxropter@gmail.com. Or the other way that you could start a conversation is just by telling your friends. Talk to them. See if they're the boss. Yeah.
And also, speaking of telling friends, a great way of supporting the show is to tell your friends about it if you like it. If you listen to it, you can be like, hey, there's this podcast. It's a little indie podcast from Montreal. And some of the episodes are 10 minutes long and some are 20. And sometimes it's silly and sometimes it's serious. And it's called Fauxropter. And they're going to go, what? And then they'll spell it out for them.
F-A-U-X Raptor.
Yes, exactly. Well, Bobbie, thank you.
John, thank you.
And thanks, Luke.
And hopefully we'll have more words from you guys soon.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.